Hi everyone, and welcome back to VetEcho, your informative vet student podcast. It's Jad, and I'm with Margot.
Hi.
And Jayana.
Hi.
Today, we're exploring a topic that is heartwarming but surprisingly complex: animal-assisted therapy, sometimes called zootherapy. Before we start, let me ask you something. Do you girls know what zootherapy actually is?
Well, with my own words, I will say it's the use of animals in a therapeutic target, so it can help, for example, with physical re-education or as a mental or social support, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think exactly the same. It could be a good way to improve the patient's social, emotional, or cognitive functioning.
Yeah. So if we want like an official definition, zootherapy is also called animal-assisted intervention, and it refers to a group of therapeutic practices that involve interaction between humans and animals in order to improve physical, psychological, emotional, or social well-being. And the idea is simple and almost intuitive. Humans and animals share a unique bond, and that bond can sometimes be used to support healing, emotional well-being, or rehabilitation. But behind these touching stories and viral video lies a much more nuanced reality. What exactly is animal-assisted therapy? How effective is it really? And perhaps more importantly, who truly benefits from it? The humans or the animals or both? So today we'll explore the premises of zootherapy, the scientific gray areas, and the ethical questions that comes with using animals as part of therapeutic care. These interventions are increasingly used in healthcare settings, rehabilitation programs, school, nursing homes, and even prisons. But the term zootherapy actually covers several different types of practice, which are often confused with each other. We generally distinguish two main categories. There's animal-assisted therapy, AAT, which is a structured therapeutic intervention. It usually has specific medical or psychological goals and is supervised by healthcare professionals. And the second category is animal-assisted activities, or AAA. These are usually less structured interactions designed mainly to improve well-being, socialization, or emotional comfort, rather than achieve a specific clinical outcome. And while we're talking about different categories, it's also important not to confuse animal-assisted therapy with another type of animal-human partnership that many people know, assistance animals or service animals.
Oh, it's interesting that you say that, because in fact I was
you thought that animals...
Yeah, I have a confusion between them too, and it was, for me, it was the same
thing.
Yes.
Yeah, well, to clarify, service animals include mainly dogs that are trained to help people with disabilities in their daily lives. For example, guide dog for visually impaired people, seizure alert dogs for epilepsy, or diabetic alert dogs, or even service dogs trained to support people with PTSD. So even though these animals can have a huge positive impact, on their owners' mental and emotional well-being, they are not technically considered as zootherapy, because the key difference is that assistance animals are trained to perform specific tasks for one person in their everyday life, rather than participating in like a group therapeutic session with supervising by healthcare professional or by like professional of the animal world. It's really an animal, like it's your own pet, but that is trained to help you. And
I don't see why we need to do that difference. I'm not sure for why we do this difference, because in the finality, they both do some kind of help to humans.
But the thing is that the assistance animal are trained for that, and in the AAT or AAA, they are not trained to do a task. They just are here, or you are like interacting with them, but it's not their actual job to help you. It's just the relationship between the human and the animal that is helping.
Okay.
And it's not the action of the dog. I don't know to really explain that.
No, I think I see it, yes.
It's true that we can actually count that as animal therapy. I don't really know why we really make a difference.
Yes.
It's just...
I guess it's because of the legislation.
Yes, it's not
it's way easier to...
Okay.
Because in AAT or AAA, the animals that are treating patients are not the animal of the patient.
Yeah.
It's like external.
Yeah, and as you said, there is not a long formation. Like, for example, if you have an assistant dog, a dog assistant, it's a lot of training and a lot of years. from the
Okay.
puppy stage to the sort of adult before
Okay.
finding a family.
Yeah.
Okay, so I thought that was the same kind of thing, but maybe I sometimes need to see again some definitions.
No, but it's normal to like confuse them because many people confuse them, and even I, before making research on this episode, I was like, for me, it was the same thing. Like, and assistance animal were like an example of
Yes.
animal-assisted therapy, and well, no. To continue with our episode, I have another question for you, girls.
Another one.
Yes, and you will have a lot more.
Oh.
So if you had to guess, which animal species do you think are most commonly used in AAT? Or AAA, like animal assisted interventions?
Well, I have seen a lot of horses in zootherapy. I do think the advantage of their use is the fact that riding them, for example, requires a lot of balance that can be useful for physical re-education, for example, but also to help with emotion control, for example, because it's animals that are often a bit more nervous than dogs and cats. And to come to my second point, dogs and cats too, I think they are very common. They are more predictable, and it's, I think, now more frequent to find these type of animals that are used for that. They also can go in hospital or elderly structures more easily than a horse that requires more organization for transport, for example.
I don't see why.
Yes, I don't know too. So I think it's a good choice for vulnerable people who cannot walk very easily, for example. And also, I have to say, they are less impressive than a horse.
Yes.
So sometimes it may feel more comfortable starting there. But to respond to your question, in general, I think every animal that is trained a bit to do that and evaluated in terms of attitude and reaction could do zootherapy. The only thing that I think we should also insist on while selecting animals is welfare. The goal is not to stress an animal or to make it uncomfortable, to help human health. And that's also a point to evaluate for each individual. But I think also during all of their career, I don't know if we can use this word, but the idea is their tolerance and desire of contacts can change also with experiences and time.
Yeah,
I think you've said all.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Margot. And we are actually going to talk a bit more about that a little bit later. So it's great that you mentioned it. Another question to continue the episode. Can you think of some examples of animal-assisted activities or therapies that people might have seen before?
Yes, as I've said, Margot, there are dogs that are visiting the hospitals and also the nursing homes to provide some comforts to the patient. It will help reduce stress, anxiety, and the feeling of loneliness. And for horses, well, I've already seen horses used in session with autistic individuals. Well, I've helped in those sessions. So I think those animals are very sensitive, and as I said, Margot, it's really helpful to respond to subtle human cues, which make them particularly useful for improving communication, confidence, and emotional regulation of some people, mainly if they have some emotional disorders, physical disabilities. And for people with autism, it's really useful, and we've seen a really good improvement before the beginning of the therapy and after. So I really like it. And I've also seen that some schools and some universities sometimes have like animals like cats or rabbits to improve the emotional support and encourage social interaction. And I think, personally, for a vet university, we should have more animals.
That could be very cool.
Yes, because we've seen them with some diseases. Well, we rarely see them
not at their best.
Yes, we mostly see them not at their best. So sometimes it could be good to have some good interaction with them.
And what you said about university, it made me think about something. When I was little,
Yeah.
I saw a lot of school having, like primary school, middle school having animals.
Yes.
And the thing was, during the holidays, the animals will come to
One
a
house?
family, yes,
Oh, yeah.
to be in the holiday. And I think it's quite cool too, because for them, it's not really zootherapy in this sense, but it will help them also to
have responsibilities.
Yes, exactly. To help with responsibility. And it's very interesting. And what you said about horses, I have a bit the same experience. My clubs offered Saturday morning lessons for young people and adults with autism. And these lessons were called the Sunshine class. And I think it's very cute and it's
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said, girls. And about what you said, Margot, about the schools doing, like having small animals that the children can bring home during holidays or even the weekends, I saw.
Yes.
I think it can be actually considered as animal-assisted activities because it can help the children to get some social skills and to get responsibility and the sense of responsibility.
That's true.
I actually think it can be considered as
I think so.
animal-assisted activity.
In that sense, yeah.
Yeah. And about what you said, Ariana, you mentioned rabbits. So it made me think about other species we didn't talk about. For example, well, there's also guinea pigs or like hamsters that can be used in animal activities or animal-assisted therapies. And we also didn't talk about the farm animals. I don't know if you already heard about the pedagogical farms.
Yes, I've heard that, and I think I've visited one.
It's so great. I think for children or people with disabilities, like it's great. And it's composed of like sheep, goats, even chickens, some cows.
And donkeys, I saw.
Yeah. Sometimes horses or ponies. Yeah. So I love pedagogical farms. That's so cute.
It's a simple place where young people or less young people can see a very diversity of species that they will not be able to see like in
everyday life.
Yeah, in everyday life or in a simple farm.
And I also think it can be great for the animals because it's like they get used to human presence and it can help them to have a great relation with humans. So I think it's really a great thing.
And for goose?
She knows I hate goose. They can be actually part of pedagogical farms, but there's nice goose and mean goose.
There is the other one where you need to run fast.
I had some bad experiences with those. To continue with the episode, I have another example of another animal species that are used, but more controversial. It's the marine species. We will talk about them a little bit later, but just to mention them in this category. And for the examples of animal-assisted activities or therapies, I will also add that I don't know if you saw, I think we already spoke about that with Margot like 1 year ago or something like that, about dogs or even cats helping in prisons and rehabilitation programs.
Yes.
So I saw a reinsertion program with cats where prisoners had to take care of stray cats. And these prison cat programs usually work in collaboration with like local animal shelters. And carefully selected inmates are given responsibility for the daily care, socialization, and sometimes medical treatment of the cats. And these programs operate under strict supervision by prison staff and animal welfare volunteers. The most programs focus on cats that need special attention before adoption, such as shy kittens, elderly cats, or those requiring medical care. And inmates keep detailed records of each cat's progress, which helps future adopters understand the cat's personality and needs. And some studies and program reports show that caring for cats in prison can have remarkable benefits for inmates, including reduced stress and anxiety, improved emotional regulation and self-control, a stronger sense of responsibility and purpose, and an increased empathy and compassion and better overall behavior within the facility. The structured routine of caring for a cat also provides valuable life skills and a sense of usefulness, which may contribute to lower recidivism. Many participants report that the unconditional affection and trust they experience with their feline companion helps them reconnect with their own humanity. And the benefits aren't just for the humans, because as I said, the cats themselves gain individualized attention and socialization, a regular veterinary care, a safe and structured environment for rehabilitation, an increased chances of adoption, often approaching 100% adoption rate, with it's insane, with well-documented behavioral and personality traits which help adopters. And some example of these programs are gel cats in France that have successfully adopted hundreds of cats, while also improving inmate behavior and emotional well-being. And a similar innovative program also exists in the United States, in South Carolina. For instance, the program like Meow Mates or Mutt Mates that pair like dogs and cats. What do you think about this initiative?
I think it's really interesting because it helps both animal and the human. And for the prisoners, I think it's really important to have this kind of interaction, because it's a first step for them to be to have a rehabilitation and to come back in the society.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's fulfilling in a certain way.
Yes.
And it gives you a form of satisfaction over something you do right now. And it's important when you are in prison and conditions that can be a bit hard to remember, you still can do good.
Yeah. And also for the prisoners, sometimes, I don't know which kind of prisoners have access to this program.
I think it's very regulated.
Yeah. Very carefully selected, because...
But sometimes some prisoners don't have much interaction with other prisoners or the guards, but have an interaction with just an animal. It's really a good help. It's a really good deporting step.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's go back to programs using marine animals. Have you ever heard of dolphin-assisted programs? And if yes, do you have any examples?
Well, yes. A few years ago, I've seen a Hortus documentary talking about it. And as much as I remember, I was following patient.
Mm-hmm.
But it was following patient. And it was both adults and children, and they were participating to the session with dolphins, and it was in the Caribbean. And the goals of this session was to stimulate communication, emotional engagement, and sometimes the motor skills, especially in individuals with autism or development disorders. And the interaction with dolphins were supposed to create a motivating and calming environment, encouraging patients to connect more easily with the others. But the documentary also mentions several criticisms. I don't know if we will speak about it later, but it's important to notice them. There is a limited scientific evidence proving the real effectiveness of these therapies, and some researchers argue that the observed improvement may simply be due to the novelty of the experience more than the
experience in itself.
Yes. And in addition, there are really important ethical concerns about keeping dolphins in captivity and using them in these type of programs.
Yeah, we will... Yes, actually, talk about it a little bit later, but it's really important to really highlight the fact that dolphin-assisted programs are controversial. And, we will detail it a bit later, but for the examples of assisted programs, I saw during my research for this episode a lot of them, but quite all of them have the same purpose as the one you described, so we will pass on for this, just to talk about this and have some examples.
Yes.
So now we can continue with the next part of this episode about the scientific evidence. So we know that animal-assisted intervention have grown rapidly in the last 2 decades. For example, more than 50% of US hospitals now report using some form of animal-assisted activity, and most commonly therapy dogs. And dog-assisted programs represent the majority of interventions studied in the scientific literature. So clearly, animals are becoming more and more present in therapeutic context. But the big question is, how effective are these interventions really? And are there truly evidence-based therapies or something more of a feel-good activity? So let's look at what the science actually says about their benefits. And the good news is that there's growing evidence that interactions with animals can have a real impact on real therapeutic benefits.
That's a good point.
Yeah, prove that we are not doing this for nothing. And I saw several studies that show measurable improvement in patients' outcomes in different fields. For example, in the psychological and emotional benefits, there's a systematic review of 47 studies that found that animal-assisted therapy can improve psychological, social, and cognitive outcomes, particularly in elderly patients and people with dementia. And the studies shows that interacting with therapy animals can help reduce anxiety, reduce perceived pain, improve mood, and increase motivation during rehabilitation. For example, there's a clinical trial that found that patients participating in dog-assisted rehabilitation showed lower anxiety and pain levels and higher engagement in therapy session. There's also some social benefits because animal can act as, and I quote, social catalysts. To prove that, there's a randomized study in patients with brain injury and this study found that therapy sessions involving animals resulted in significantly more verbal communication, more positive emotional expression, and higher patient satisfaction compared with the conventional sessions.
Yeah.
And this is particularly interesting for patients with, I think we already mentioned that. Maybe it was you, I don't remember, but we spoke about that. But it's effective with patients with autism spectrum disorder, dementia, or psychiatric conditions, or even social anxiety. There's also, and that's actually funny, I don't know if you knew, but some physiological effects. Some studies suggest physiological synchronization between humans and animals. For example, there's a 2025 review examining 37 studies that found evidence that human-animals interaction can lead to co-modulation or physiological signs such as heart rates or stress hormones like cortisol. Like for cortisol, I find it quite, it's okay. Like it's a bit intuitive. But heart rates.
Well, we don't really have the same type of heart rate, so
humans and dogs can be similar.
Yeah, but I was thinking about horses, for example.
No.
Well, I'm not sure I want to have their...
where it's not mentioned when I did the research, but I think it's more about dogs.
Okay.
Because as we said, the literature, scientific literature study mostly dogs.
Yes.
So I think it's maybe more about that. So in simple terms, to resume everything I said, when humans relax during interaction with an animal, the animal may also show physiological signs of relaxation. And some meta-analyses show moderate improvement in depression scores in older adults receiving animal-assisted therapy compared with control groups. And in autism research, a meta-analysis of 45 studies involving more than 1,200 participants reported improvement in social communication and reduced irritability during animal-assisted interaction. Another question for you girls. Why do you think animals can sometimes reach patients in ways other humans can't?
Well, because they are cuter than humans. No, more seriously, I think it's because they interact without judgment or expectation, and this can make people feel safer and less pressure, especially if they struggle with communication or have social anxiety. And for another point, animals also communicate in a more direct and non-verbal way through body language and behaviors. So for some patients, such as those with autism and trauma, I think this can be easier to understand than human communication, which is often more complex and sometimes get lost in social convention or the indirect language. So interacting with animal can create a sense of calm and comfort. So the physical contact, like the petting a dog or being close to a horse can help reduce stress. And in some cases, taking care of the animal, even through simple activities like grooming, can give patient a sense of responsibility and help them engage more easily. So I think this can make them more open to interaction in a gradual and reassuring way.
Yeah, I agree. And I'd also say that for some people living in high structured care environments, animals feel like a break from the routine, something different, something positive. And then there is the fact that with animals, you don't feel defined by your condition. Unlike when you're with a doctor or a nurse, there is no reminder of any of that. And I think it helps a lot. And it helps them also rebuild confidence for some. So
yes,
and it's easier after, as you said, to open up and to express themselves freely without any fear of being judged and everything. So I think this part also can be an explanation on why it works that much.
And I think that sometimes you just want to have a presence with you and just escaping in your thoughts.
Exactly.
But some humans will be like, well, why do you don't want to have a contact with me? Why you don't want to talk with me? And the animal will just simply be there, close to you, and you in your mind doing your job, or simply, well, reading a book, and you have your cat with you.
Yeah, as you said, it can be less demanding in terms of interaction. You can control it maybe a bit more easier than with a human, where you have to really put a boundary if you want.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. I think you said everything I thought about, actually. So I have nothing to add.
We are in your mind.
Yeah, that's scary. But yeah, I also think that they can act as, for example, some people with social anxiety or anxiety that sometimes can dissociate from their body and be somewhere else. The animal can act as
it puts you to the ground.
Yeah, like you return to reality and know that you exist, you are here, you are alive, and it's like, I don't know.
An anchor.
Yeah, exactly, that's it. An anchor to reality. And animals are non-judgmental, as we said, so it's easier to interact with an animal when we have like anxiety, social anxiety, or even when we have a physical disability that make us scared of the view of other people.
Yes.
An animal will never judge, so it's great.
Yes.
But despite these promising results, the scientific evidence behind zootherapy is actually much less clear than many people think. Many studies in this field have significant methodological limitations. Several scientific reviews point out recurring issues such as small sample size, the absence of proper control group, heterogeneous protocols, and difficulties reproducing results across different studies. Because of these limitations, comparing results between studies can be extremely challenging. In fact, some systematic review of randomized controlled trials conclude that most studies in animal-assisted therapy were of relatively low methodological quality, which make it difficult to draw a strong scientific conclusion. Other reviews also highlight how different patient populations, different animal species, and very different therapy settings make the field particularly difficult to standardize. Another important question researchers often raise is the possibility of a placebo effect. In other words, are the benefits truly due to the presence and the actions of the animal itself, or could they come from like other factors surrounding the activity? And for example, several potential confounding factors have been identified. For example, patients may receive increased attention from therapists during sessions involving animals, and the activity itself may simply be enjoyable or new. Expectations also from patients, family, or healthcare providers may also influence how the results are perceived. Another challenge is the variability in patient responses. Not everyone reacts to animal in the same way. And research shows that the impact of animal-assisted interventions can vary widely depending on the person's age, personality, medical condition, emotional state, or previous experiences with animals. And for some people, animals can be comforting and motivating, but for others, they may trigger stress, fear, or allergies. So in certain clinical environments, these factors have to be taken very seriously. And beyond scientific questions, there are also legal and regulatory issues, because in many countries, animal-assisted therapy is still poorly regulated, and there are often no standardized guidelines regarding the training and certification of therapy animals. And veterinary monitoring requirements may vary, and the standards of selecting and preparing animals differ widely between programs. And this raises important legal questions. For instance, who is responsible if a therapy animal bites someone during a session? What happens if an animal transmits a zoonotic disease in a hospital or nursing home setting? So these risks are not purely theoretical, and reviews of hospital-based programs have highlighted potential concerns about allergies, infections, and occasional animal-related incidents. All of these elements show that while zootherapy can be beneficial, it also raises complex questions that require careful management. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Do you think animal-assisted therapy should be regulated in the same way as other medical therapies?
I do think animal-assisted therapy should be regulated, but not exactly in the same way as other medical therapy. First of all, we are dealing with living beings, both animals and patients. So there are clearly safety and ethical consideration to have, as you said. So regulation is essential to ensure that animals are properly selected and trained in the way of selected.
Yes.
And as we mentioned earlier, not every animal is suitable for that. They need to demonstrate stable behavior, low stress reactivity, and a high tolerance for human interaction. Otherwise, it can become counterproductive or even risky, as you said, Jad. So for me, the regulation should focus a lot on this part to prevent some risks. And after, there is also a strong public health dimension, as you said. Many of the patients involved are elderly people, immunocompromised individuals, or hospital patients. So all of these people are more vulnerable, and scientific literature highlights the need for strict hygiene protocol to prevent risks, such as zoonotic infection, as you said, ectoparasites like fleas or ticks, and other bacterial transmission. So, for example, I've seen some guidelines from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention recommending regular veterinary check, proper vaccination, grooming, and control interaction with healthcare settings. And this clearly shows that working with animals require a specific level of attention that differ from standard care. But at the same time, I think it's important to acknowledge that the strength of animals-assisted therapy lies in its flexibility and its relational dimension. If we over-standardize it, we risk losing what makes it effective for me. So, for example, research shows that a large part of its impact comes from a spontaneous and emotional interaction that, for me, you cannot simply and fully protocolize it. So it's a bit the problem of putting a huge regulation on it. And there is also another key point, which is accessibility. This type of therapy for me should remain available to as many people as possible.
Yeah.
It works today because it's more flexible, less intimidating, and more human than other traditional cares. And if the regulations are becoming too restrictive, we risk excluding some people of the very people who could benefit from it. So, of course, the risk-benefit balance always needs to be considered, but if it's properly managed, the risk can be minimized, allowing this approach to remain both safe and widely accessible.
Yeah, I have quite the same idea about the regulation, and I would like to add that for the four part of regulated it, I think that the regulation could guarantee that the therapy is evidence based and with clear goals and measurable outcomes rather than relying on anecdotal success stories. So it's important to, well, as we talk about it, be sure that it's not like a mode effect. And we have a really evidence of, yes. And for being against regulation, well, not totally against, but there are some counterparts. I think that, as you said, if we regulated, maybe the therapy will be more expensive and less accessible. And it's especially for the schools or the community program that rely on volunteers. And also some people can argue that because animals are involved, the therapy doesn't fit neatly into the same frameworks as traditional medical treatment. So too much regulation might be unnecessary.
I agree.
Yeah. And I agree also about what you said, Margot, if it's too much standardized and protocolized and everything, it can lose the effects of what it actually does.
Yes. We could lose the spontaneity and the natural kind of interaction.
Yeah, and I think the good point about zootherapy is the fact that every individual can find something in there.
Yes.
And if it starts to be very
protocol,
yes, it risks of erasing some parts of it.
Yes.
Yeah. And it will not feel like as natural as it's supposed to feel. It's working on people with, for example, mental or physical disabilities because they feel like they are normal doing this. They have a normal relationship with the animal.
They have time to develop this relationship.
Yeah. But if we put too much rules, it might not feel as natural and people will feel it and the effect is just
we have to make an appointment like you do to going to the doctor or something.
Yeah, and again, it will remind you just the traditional way of medicine and it reminds you your condition at the end.
Yeah, and it makes you feel like you're not normal and you are doing something more than normal people.
Exactly, yeah.
So yeah, too much rules, not good. This brings us to perhaps the most important question of all, because for us as future vets, what about the animals themselves? You spoke about it, Margot, earlier in the episode. What are the animals thinking? Are they comfortable with humans and everything? So animal-assisted therapy is designed to improve human well-being, but it may also come with certain costs for the animals involved. For example, therapy animals can experience stress, fatigue, overstimulation, or even the risk of injury depending on the environment in which they work. For instance, therapy sessions in hospitals, schools, or crowded public spaces may expose animals to unfamiliar noises, unpredictable human behavior, or intense physical interaction. A recent study by Fulton and al. In 2026, so it's really recent, examined therapy dogs exposed to stressful environments and found evidence in cortisol levels depending on environmental conditions. So this suggests that therapy work can indeed influence psychological stress responses in dogs. However, measuring stress in animals is not always straightforward, and some researchers warn that commonly used biomarkers such as cortisol levels do not necessarily capture the full picture of an animal's welfare. In other words, stress may sometimes be underestimated if we rely on only one indicator. Another ethical question concerned the idea of the animal consent. Unlike human therapists, animals cannot choose whether they want to participate in therapeutic activities. This raises important questions. Can animal truly consent to therapy work? How many hours should therapy animal work in a day or a week? And what signs of fatigue or discomforts should indicate that session should end?
Well, we don't need to fall into the system of like the cat cafes or the old version of those kind of thing where people are here to be with the animal and force the interaction. Well, it is in the detriment of the welfare of the animals.
Yeah, but the difficult thing in animal-assisted therapy is that the animal is supposed to be here for the human. And for example, in cats, coffees and coffee shop and everything, the people are here to see the cats, but the cats are not forced to interact. But in therapy or activity assisted by animals, it's like the goal of the thing. And if the animal doesn't interact with the humans, then there's no therapy.
And the thing also I think can be complicated is often these sessions are programmed a bit before, so it can be hard to know from a week before if the animal will be okay with contact and will feel fully consenting to that.
Yeah. So to continue on the cons, let's talk again about dolphin-assisted therapy that has been widely debated, as we said, very controversial. And similar concerns exist for those programs involving marine mammals or wildlife interactions. Critics argue that in some cases, these activities may prioritize tourism, marketing, or entertainment rather than genuine therapeutic benefits or animal welfare. Can I ask you girls, what are your thoughts on using marine animals in animal therapy?
Yeah, well, unlike dogs or horses, marine animals like dolphins, for example, are wild and not domesticated. So in the wild, they travel long distances, live in complex social groups, and have highly developed cognitive abilities, while in captivity they are confined in small spaces, which can lead to stress, abnormal behaviors, and psychological suffering. Also, the use of chlorinated water, for example, in captivity to help eliminating microorganisms and treat water can damage the skin and eyes of animals that are not naturally adapted to such chemical environments, which can lead to irritation and increased health issues. So the captivity in itself of marine animals is quite controversial. There is also the question of exploitation, because these animals don't naturally interact with humans, so using them for therapy raises the issue of prioritizing human benefits over animal health care. And for me, this is not the aim of therapy in general. Working with animals is not essential. It's not the first line treatment, but often a secondary support. So it's even less justified for me. And to finish on my perspective, the scientific evidence of the effectiveness of dolphin therapy, for example, as Irina said earlier, is still limited and debated, which make it even
not necessary.
Yes, more questionable. So overall, even if the intention is positive, I think the ethical cost is difficult to justify in this context, especially when similar benefits can be achieved with domesticated animals.
For me, I think it might sound quite extreme or strict, but personally, I don't really like the idea of depriving wild animals like dolphins of their freedom. These programs can certainly bring benefits to humans, especially patients with emotional or development challenges, like we told before. But at the same time, we have to remember that dolphins are, as said Margot, naturally wild animal. They live in complex and social groups, and they experience environment that are very different from any pool or enclosure. So even if we take care of their needs and provide enrichment, captivity can never fully replicate their natural life. So just as we understand that a zoo isn't the ideal environment for a giraffe, for example, pools and enclosure are far from the life dolphins are naturally adapted to. So while we can acknowledge the potential human benefits and the effort made to respect animal welfare, I think we have to accept a limit. We cannot simply expect wild species to adapt to a life designed primarily to serve humans' needs. So their freedom and natural behavior should be respected, and even if it means that some therapeutics programs are not really feasible.
Yeah, I agree. And the main concern of those therapies are that I think it might be going too far.
Yeah.
Because we begin with animals we are used to, that are also used to us.
Yes.
And now we are extending to wildlife and everything. So maybe it's going too far.
Yeah, and also the thing is it really better? Does it have more effects than other animals? And that's the question. If the same goal can be achieved with domesticated animals, I don't really see the interest of expanding that to animals where we know it's more complicated to ensure their health well.
Yeah. I think they expand the therapies to those animals because it's like more wow, like the wow effect and like marketing effect, tourism effect, like I said before. So it might not be for the good reasons that we are extending. And the real concern is that we are doing this for human entertainment, human health, but do we really think about the animal health, the animals' well-being?
Yes.
And I think that in those type of therapies and activities, the animal well-being must remain a central consideration.
For sure.
Well, when we talk about limits and where we should stop and draw lines, the last question for you girls. As future veterinarians, where do you think we should draw the line between helping humans and protecting animal welfare?
Well, to be short and to a bit summarize everything that we said, I think the line should be drawn where the animal welfare is no longer fully respected. The framework of 5 freedoms that we all know should always guide our decisions, ensuring animals are free from pain, stress, fear, and able to express their natural behavior. And if these fundamental needs cannot be guaranteed, then the practice, even if it's beneficial to humans, should be reconsidered for me.
Well, yes, I don't think human should be the one and only species that we put in the top of the list of welfare, but we should take care of every species at this kind of same level and not give some privilege to human, and even if it benefits them.
Yeah, and to give a bit more context on that, we are talking about something that is often secondary support. It's not like a question of life or death treatment. So even if it's benefit for the human, it's not something that is essential.
Yes, and we don't go back on the positive aspect of those kind of therapy, but we should put some limits on where they should be applied and when and for what kind of animal it should be applied.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said, as always. Nothing to add. And with that, we'll wrap up today's episode. Animal-assisted therapy is a fascinating field that sits at the intersection of science, medicine, psychology, and ethics. As we have seen, it can bring real benefits to many people, but it also raises important questions about scientific evidence, regulation, and of course, animal welfare. So maybe the real takeaway isn't a simple answer, but rather an invitation to keep questioning how we integrate animal into therapeutic care and how we can do it in a way that benefits both human and animals. Thank you so much for listening to VetEcho. We hope you enjoyed this episode and learned something new today. We're really grateful for your support and for being part of this journey with us. Take care, and we'll see you very soon for the next episode of VetEcho. Until then, bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.